when you're using an X-Acto knife, you have to use one of these cutting boards. It's rubberized and it'll make sure that you don't scratch the table. If I want to remove just the background from this, what I advise you guys to do is don't try to cut a perfect line around anything. What you want to do is think about removing material. Okay, I should probably replace this blade, but you can see when we cut through it, we want to try to remove as much material as we can. In fact, yeah, this blade's going to need changing. All right, I don't know that I'm going to be able to zoom all that well. Let me see if it'll zoom in for us. Zoom. Okay. All right, watch closely. So I'm going to get as close as I can to these areas, but I'm not worried about tracing with the knife, if that makes sense. I am worried about removing material. And then I can go back in to clean up the edges later. Now, for something like this, it may make more sense to just use scissors and do your best to cut and follow the lines as best you can. But you may have some areas where you will want to use an X-Acto knife, particularly if you have like small or delicate areas on the interior of a shape. Okay, so I'm going to just follow around, and then as soon as I lose my bearing, basically, now this is with scissors or an X-Acto knife. Anytime where I feel like I've done what I can, I'm going to just try to like get out of there with a straight line fairly quickly. So another thing is like these deep interior angles, a lot of times I will press and cut straight lines out from there so that then I only have to make additional cuts. Maybe I'll make a halfway point here and I'll remove that material. It's going to make it a lot easier to clear things out. So if you can work, again, you want to cut away from yourself, but the most important thing is to realize you don't have to do any single cut perfectly. It's a series of very small cuts in order to remove the material that you don't want for that particular layer. Okay, so could you do this with scissors? Probably. You could remove some of the material with scissors. But if you feel like you need to get in there, rotate the paper where it's comfortable, whether you're right or left-handed, and then press firmly as best you can. You guys still see that? All right, I'm trying to avoid blocking myself. Again, for something like that, I could probably get in there with some scissors and just try to be as accurate as possible. Okay. Now down here, this is going to be really tight. The possibility of me getting every one of those little nooks and crannies, it's pretty small. So what I'm going to look for are kind of the straight lines that I know I can follow fairly faithfully, and then everything else I'll have to make an executive decision, call it, artistic license. What are you going to include and not in the layer? These little bits and bobs, you may be able to cut them out, but you aren't going to be able to like have them attached to their own piece of foam board in the end. You just need enough foam board on the back to help it kind of stand up and drop a shadow on the layer underneath. So to give you an idea of what we're going for, what we have here's our base image, and then what we will eventually have is that raised up layer, just a touch. Okay, now you could also cut away the interior. You could have the bottom layer be the lowest and then build up to the outside. There's not any rhyme or reason to this as long as some portion of your project pops out. Again, removing material with the largest amount of straight lines that you can get away with is certainly going to make your job easier, and then you only have to execute some small cuts. So I may go up here, trace down, call that, okay? And here maybe I'm going to do a straight line out. I will try to save this little notch. It may not work, but I'm going to attempt it. Okay, I'm actually just going to press straight in there, see if I can tear that part away. Yep, all right, I was able to make that cut. And again, a series of very small cuts is going to be easier to handle than trying to do a whole bunch at once. So I can go in, get that little notch, that little notch. You can see where it's cut away and where it's not. Okay. So eventually we'll be building up and up and removing more and more material as we make our way to the final pop-up print.